Thanks for joining us for this look at the best original reporting from KPBS News this week. I'm Matt Hoffman. Coming up, the beauty of San Diego's public art. We'll have the first in a series of KPBS features that explore how art helps people connect with their communities. A march for pride in East County. After some painful moments recently in Santee, hundreds turn out to express their joy. And learning more about sharks in Southern California. Scientists try to find out why more of them are hanging around one North County city. One of the biggest stories this week is the tight vote by the San Diego City Council, establishing what it calls the unsafe camping ordinance. John Carroll reports on the disagreements with how to deal with a growing homeless population.
I think the amendment is reasonable. Helped to fashion a compromise that could actually get action yesterday.
Flanked by Councilmember Stephen Whitburn, who proposed the ordinance, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria was firm in the face of significant opposition.
Status quo is indefensible, and what the council did under Councilmember Whitburn's leadership was take action and move forward.
The vote was 5-4. Members that opposed it had a variety of reasons for voting no.
It appears the police department is now going to have this ordinance to enforce with no additional resources at their disposal.
The new law bans encampments within 2 blocks of schools, in some parks, in canyons, along waterways, and near trolley tracks.
Our neighborhoods don't get treated the same.
Council President Pro Tem Monica Montgomery Stepp says the new ordinance does not adequately address racial inequities faced by homeless people of color.
They face apathy, discrimination, and disrespect from police. The result is a reluctance to seek services proactively as well as to engage with outreach when offered.
Councilmember Joe LaCava said he only supported the ordinance after receiving assurances about getting updates on issues like shelter availability and abatement actions. The mayor says the city is being proactive on a number of fronts, including opening safe parking lots for those living in their cars. And he says the city is moving forward as fast as possible to bring more shelter beds online. Enforcement of the ordinance is expected to begin in late July, but tonight, questions and anger remain as to whether the city is doing enough and whether it's doing the right thing. John Carroll, KPBS News.
While shelters on this side of the border often get public backing and money, that's not always the same in Tijuana. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis tells us that a well-known haven for migrants is struggling to stay open.
Proyecto Salesino is a Tijuana institution. For 37 years, this free soup kitchen has fed between 800 and 1,000 people each day. And the organization's migrant shelters have given thousands of asylum seekers refuge on their way to the U.S. But now, all that is at risk of shutting down.
Si no podemos, sí, tenemos que cerrar con dolor en el corazón.
Father Agustin Novoa says that they lost a majority of donors during the pandemic, and the current recession has made everything much more expensive.
Toda la canasta básica, todo ha subido bastante. Entonces, claro que a los albergues nos ha pegado.
Claudia Portela manages its programs. She says the migrant shelter for women and children would be the first to close. At this rate, they have enough cash on hand to keep the lights on for maybe another month.
Muy poco, a lo máximo podremos aguantar quizás un mes más.
There are a couple reasons for the shelter's current situation. A couple of major donors to the shelter died during COVID. Also, U.S. donations declined during the pandemic. And now, people aren't donating because of the economy. Everything has been cut in half since before the pandemic. Financial support, donations, even volunteers.
Con la pandemia muchos se reducieron a la mitad. De dar 140,000 te doy 70. Y con el largo de los años que sigue habiendo problemas, nos vienen bajando las donaciones.
Shelters throughout the city are in a similar situation. They've been overcrowded and underfunded since 2020. Proyecto Salesino held a rally and press conference on Tuesday morning. It's their last-ditch effort to secure more funding. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
In an age of polarization and alienation, there remains a space that binds, awes, and inspires and even educates. Public art we're talking about. KPBS's Amitha Sharma looked at a few places where artists have conspired to give beauty and provoke thought.
I think a mural like this absolutely stops people in their tracks.
Jim Dacian is describing a multi-shaded blue painting that pops off the wall at the corner of 20th Street and Imperial Avenue in Barrio Logan. In calligraphy, it spells out America's finest city and depicts quintessential local images.
There's aspects over the Coronado Bridge, the train. You can see our friar from the Padres.
Because Dacian is an art history professor at Point Loma Nazarene University, he sees more. A maze of lines, forms, shapes that unfold San Diego's story.
You can think of the city of San Diego as the inspiration and the writing on the wall as a poem, a reflection, a creative interpretation of the things that are interpreting and influencing the artist.
I paint a lot of San Diego stuff just so people can enjoy it. It's my city. I love my city.
The artist Dice One co-painted the mural with his friend Hassel in 2017.
I see it as a gift, and from what I've seen in the last 6 years, as long as it's been running, I mean, like I say, people love it.
Dice One's intent is for his work to be an offering, and that forms the soul of the many murals, some graffiti, sculptures, statues, installations, and other pieces that mark indoor and outdoor spaces across San Diego County. Dacian says public art's purpose is layered. It can add beauty.
But it could also challenge us on a number of political, social, or any conceptual issue altogether.
It could encourage people to engage with more depth, vibrance. Good public art imparts fresh insights, invites repeated visits, he says.
Almost like a conversation with an old friend that's full of surprises. As you ask new questions, new things are revealed.
Without it, life is drab.
What would the world be without the Statue of Liberty?
Christine Jones is Chief of Civic Arts Strategies at the City of San Diego.
What would San Diego be without Chicano Park murals?
She says the work goes beyond aesthetics.
It has components you can't see, which is really more about its innate ability to really support social cohesion, a sense of belonging, a sense of neighborhood pride.
Jones says there are many forms of public art, some that artists install in public places, and then there's art commissioned by local governments. San Diego's public art budget this year is $5.7 million. Its collection totals nearly 800 artworks. Some of Jones' favorite public art can be seen inside the downtown Central Library, including its elevator.
Somebody going into this elevator and being launched into this discovery of encyclopedic nature of what a library is.
Step outside the library and public art abounds in the region. There's the whimsical. Think Nikki de St. Thally's exaggerated sculpture of an alligator outside the Mingay Museum. The participatory, a mosaic of community faces named A Place to Call Home at Southcrest Trails Park. The startling, such as the tiny house titled Fallen Star, perched atop the engineering building at UCSD. The colorful and captivating, like the murals at the California Center for the Arts in Escondido, and the iconic Chicano Park with its murals portraying Chicano history, culture, and key civil rights activists. Jim Dacian calls the area's public art robust. Finding it, he says, is similar to a scavenger hunt.
We often don't see what's in front of us, and we need to get out of our cars and walk.
Back at the America's Finest City mural, street performer James Havoc heeds the credo. He says he passes the mural each day on his way to a nearby Walmart and is affected by what he sees.
It calls to me. Makes me feel part of. And kind of like the homies, you know? It's every day I pass by here to go to Walmart, and it makes me, it's a good, like I said, it's a good representation of our community.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
We want to know, what pieces of public art would you like to know more about? You can tell us at kpbs.org/publicart. Stories on public art in San Diego are among our most popular online this week. Here's some others. Watch as San Diegans reclaim 66 acres of abandoned freeway. It's a companion story to Andrew Bowen's Freeway Exit podcast. And hundreds make history with Santee's first Pride Walk. We'll have that story for you coming up shortly. And $40,000 to help with a down payment. Read about a new program trying to boost homeownership among people of color in San Diego. The latest class of San Diego police officer hopefuls is just starting to train. They're being led by someone unconventional who is already making positive changes. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado has her story.
Welcome to day 2 of the Police Academy at the San Diego Regional Public Safety Training Institute. Here, new recruits are pushed to their limits to prepare them for what they will encounter on the streets and neighborhoods of San Diego County and beyond.
Good to go?
And training the next generation of officers is one of San Diego Police Department's finest, Officer Lisa Hartman.
We want to get repetition, okay?
I was told by people who I knew worked for different departments that, hey, you know, it's going to be tough as a woman.
There's going to be pain with this profession. There's going to be sweat with this profession. There's going to be uncomfortable with this profession.
Her presence commands respect.
Understand? Yes, ma'am. Fall out.
In a profession dominated by straight white men, this 20-year law enforcement veteran is in charge of one of the most important aspects of the police academy.
I never would have thought becoming a police officer I'd be able to use my master's degree in exercise science in this capacity. But here I am, I run the physical training program for the new kids as well as mental illness.
You heard that right, mental illness. Being physically strong used to be what mattered most as a cop, but there's been a shift.
Back when I was a baby cop, we didn't have that. We had, hey, you come to work, you do your job. Anything you see here, you know, any traumas you go through at work, well, figure out how to deal with it. It was kind of like a mentality.
The new mentality, your life also depends on learning how to cope with what you see, experience, and feel on the job. This has become standard training. Hartman helped usher in that change about 5 years ago.
We actually started a 2-hour block for the recruits to learn how to better understand what they're going to go through in this career.
They quickly found it made a difference, so they incorporated even more time in the next academy. According to the National Institutes of Health, people who work in law enforcement are 54% more likely to die of suicide than any other job, except firefighting. And for women on the force, it's even higher.
I still suffer from, you know, things I've seen, and it's always there, you know. Will it be there when I retire? Probably, to a certain degree, because it's truly a career that sticks with you. It's tough. It's a tough career.
She says teaching these new recruits how to recognize and deal with mental distress before it becomes destructive will not only make them better officers, but can save their lives and others too.
We really need to take care of our officers for longevity, to keep them safe, to, you know, really be aware of suicide prevention and try to minimize that as best we can and let these kids know, hey, it's okay to go ask for help. It's okay to let your sergeant know, hey, you know what? I'm having a hard time.
Recently retired SDPD Assistant Chief Sarah Crichton says what they learn is as important as who's doing the training.
The need to be firm, the need to be empathetic and compassionate, and all the things that really are required today of a police officer.
She says Hartman brings that and more.
The ideal employee, somebody who can go out there and connect with the people who are at their absolute worst.
And as Hartman reflects on her career, she says it's the people who care about you on and off the job, like Crichton, who make a big difference.
You have by far impacted me more than anybody in this department. And I'm just thankful you're here and feel blessed for your words.
The confidence in her ability to lead here comes from knowing she's not just respected, but that people who work with her care about her, everything about her. She has 2 sons, a grandson,
my big boy,
and a partner.
Just like with my boys and everything else, I'm very lucky and very blessed to have her in my life. She is the light of my life.
She says for years she didn't share that with anyone, not even her family.
It's hard, it's stifling. You kind of lose a piece of you.
She says diversifying leadership roles sends a message of hope to people suffering in silence.
Whether it be LGBTQ community, Black, Muslim, whatever, if they see people in those positions, hopefully it empowers them and makes them feel like, hey, you know what? I can do that, especially if they're struggling.
And that, she says, will also help departments that are struggling too.
It's frustrating because so many of us are the good ones, but the few bad ones make it very challenging. We are still getting recruits. It's not at the level in which we used to.
And her impact is evident in this 135th Police Academy. This class has about twice the number of female recruits than the average. Recruit Brenda Sotomayor says it's allowed her to dream big.
Thank you. Thank you for showing us the way. Thank you for what you teach us. It really does motivate us, and seeing females in roles like yours, it inspires us.
If I get to, one recruit, I feel like I've made a difference.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
These stories that you see on KPBS News this week are also available on our YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe and get notifications for new content there. Our YouTube page includes news and some of our original programming, like Ken Kramer's About San Diego. It's also where we live stream KPBS Evening Edition weeknights at 5 p.m. It's Pride Month, and some celebrations are happening in places that have gone without in years past. That includes one East County city that's dealt with its own tensions in recent months. Katie Hyson visited Santee's Community Pride Walk.
Participants said they were overwhelmingly excited, though some nerves ran underneath. The city is nicknamed Clan T for its connection to hate groups. A few months ago, protests shut down part of the Santee YMCA after a gym goer told city council members she was afraid when a trans woman, Kristen Wood, used the women's locker room. One walk attendee, a political science teacher, called the YMCA protests astroturfing, mobilizing to create the image of public consensus where there is none. That public display of anti-LGBTQ+ sentiment was part of what propelled the church to host the Pride Walk, says organizer Nanette Burrell.
I think that's a small but vocal segment. I think the community as a whole is caring and are all good people.
Hundreds showed up to walk. Drummers, chants.
Everyone is welcome here, no hate, no fear.
And a near constant stream of passing cars honking in support drowned out the dozen, mostly silent protesters and one woman with a megaphone.
Why are you engaged with us?
Santee's mayor even came in support. Kristen Wood stood in the crowd, taking in the solidarity.
But that is the beat of love and joy and inclusion.
After the discrimination she's faced in the last few months, she was moved.
Words kind of failed me, and I got a lot of words. But is this not beautiful?
Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
Graduation season is wrapping up, and one recent grad is an example of the benefits of dual enrollment. KPBS's education reporter MG Perez tells us about an option that's gaining traction for those trying to save money and time.
What general education class do you have to take to? And then
Brianna Hinojosa knows what she's talking about. She just graduated from Miramar Community College, where she is also a mentor to students who need help figuring out how they will make it to graduation here. She's come a long way.
I was on the fence with college just because I wasn't like a straight A student, so I kind of was just that self-doubting myself, saying I don't even know if it's good for me.
In 2020, Brianna graduated from Mira Mesa High School, where she was a member of the Sapphire Sound Marching Band. In her senior year, a counselor suggested she get a head start by taking college credit courses through the Miramar campus. She got high school credit at the same time and discovered a new love for learning.
With college classes, you had like only 2 days and also a lot of time to like study and also do your homework. So a lot of times when I wasn't in class, I would just do my homework and have so much time. And really, I like the layout of college classes, knowing what to expect. So you're kind of not like getting things thrown at you.
Taking dual enrollment classes through a community college is free thanks to state funding. And for high school students in San Diego Unified, the district pays for all textbooks. It's a win-win for more than 1,500 juniors and seniors who split their time between their high school classroom and Miramar. Miramar is not the only campus seeing an increase in dual enrollment. Across the San Diego Community College District, there has been a jump of 30% in just the past year in the number of high school students looking to save time and money. It also streamlines the process without additional testing and requirements.
Students were taking AP courses and they would have to take an AP test in order to get college credit if they scored a certain score. By taking dual enrolled courses, in effect, you're getting college credit right off the bat. There is no additional test. As long as you pass the course, you have college credit.
Nationwide, dual enrollment at community colleges has increased by more than 8% every year since the COVID shutdown. College professors also travel to high schools to teach courses, and online classes are an option too.
Hi guys, welcome to the day in the life as a peer mentor.
Meanwhile, Brianna Hinojosa is also spreading the dual enrollment message on social media, along with her success story. She was just accepted for the fall freshman class of UCLA, where she plans to earn a bachelor's degree in psychology and maybe a master's degree after that. MG Perez, KPBS News.
California child care centers are now required to test their water for lead. Most lead levels are within state standards, safety standards, but not all of them. One San Diego daycare operation had the highest level in the state. Here's more on how you can look at the data yourself and what to do once you have that information. More than 130 child care centers in San Diego County had lead levels above the state's baseline. That's 5 parts per billion. In California, 1 in 4 centers tested so far had these elevated levels. A new interactive map on kpbs.org lets people look at the results themselves. It has data through April from San Diego County child care centers. Facilities that find these high levels must correct the problem. A state law required them to test for lead by January of this year. The CDC says there's no safe level of lead, so what if it's found in drinking water? We talked to a medical toxicologist who says there's no simple answer.
If you're like, well, my kid went to this daycare for 2 months 6 years ago, and I don't really know what to do about that, it's a conversation ultimately to have with your pediatrician.
Dr. Justin Seltzer is a medical toxicology fellow and emergency room physician with UC San Diego Health. He says lead poisoning that requires immediate intervention usually doesn't come from drinking water, more like old paint or other types of prolonged exposure. He says in toxicology, there isn't a true threshold dose for what might cause negative effects from ingesting lead.
I can't say, well, you had 87,000 particles of lead and of lead, oxide, and therefore this is what you're going to determine, right? So I can't get us there, and we don't have that kind of information. But what we do know is that the longer and more intense the exposure, the higher the likelihood you're going to develop the things that we're talking about. So those are neurobehavioral abnormalities, which you mentioned. Those are kidney problems and cardiac problems. Kids can develop hearing issues, delayed language development.
Seltzer says when it comes to potential lead exposure, the total picture needs to be looked at. How long someone might have been exposed, did it come from a source of water that was regularly used, and what were the potential exposure levels? A pediatrician can then determine if a blood-drawn test is necessary.
Because if they say, well, you were only at that daycare for 1 day a month for 2 hours, yes, I understand the daycare was a problem, but, the likelihood of having a huge exposure is low, and we're not going to do anything about it because you don't even go there anymore. Versus you spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week there because both parents work, and you've been going there since you were 2 years old, and now you're 4. That's a very different person and a very different conversation.
State officials told KPBS if a daycare finds lead levels higher than 5.5 parts per billion, they need to immediately stop using the water source. If they want to keep that sink or drinking fountain, facilities have 30 days to make repairs, replace it, and retest. California law requires child care centers built before 2010 to test for lead. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News. It's not news that San Diego County beaches can draw a crowd, and it's not just people that seem to enjoy our coastline. North County reporter Alexander Wynn caught up with scientists who say that Del Mar is especially popular among sharks.
Sun, sand, and surf. The beaches of Del Mar are some of the best in the world, and they're popular with swimmers and surfers. and sharks seem to like them too.
I know they're out there.
Ted Zimbelman is a local surfer in Del Mar. He says surfers here don't seem too concerned about it for the most part. But in the past few years, he's noticed an increase in the shark population.
The last few years I've noticed that there are more. I don't know if that's the case for a fact, but I've noticed them more.
He might not be wrong.
We think the population is increasing.
That's Patrick Rex, a field technician at Cal State Long Beach's Shark Lab. In a 2-year study using drones to track sharks, he found that there are more sharks and they're swimming right next to people.
I thought the sharks would avoid people. What we found, though, is that sharks were right around people. They were using the exact same place.
The study found that juvenile white sharks are concentrated in 2 areas, South Santa Barbara County and Del Mar. In those 2 spots, sharks were swimming next to humans around 97% of the days surveyed. In Del Mar, it was closer to 100% of the time. And that's because there are more people in the water there than in Santa Barbara, says Chris Lowe, the Sharks Lab director.
So therefore, the probability of some of the many sharks that we had tagged and were sighting from the drone being in close proximity to a person in Del Mar was much higher than the other site where there were fewer people.
We've always known that the beaches off Del Mar are great white sharks nurseries, so the chances of swimming next to one is pretty high. But what we didn't know was how high and how much the sharks don't seem to care about us.
So I think the thing that will surprise people the most is the fact that sharks are out there all the time, whether you see them or not, but they're not bothering anybody. We're not on the menu, we don't pose a threat, and as a result, they kind of ignore us.
Back in Del Mar, Zimbelman says he does the same with sharks.
Yeah, I ignore them, let them do their thing, and I do my thing, yeah.
That's the tip from the experts. During the entire monitoring period between 2019 and 2021, there were no reports of a shark attack in the surveyed area. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
We hope you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Matt Hoffman. Thanks for being here with us.